You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk. And as you could tell from the title, I'm going to be breaking down all 32 first-round picks. I had a feeling that's what I'd be doing. Was there something earth-shattering that happened in the sports world outside of the NFL draft? The answer is yes, but it does pertain to the NFL draft a little bit, so I'll get into it when I talk about the 29th overall pick. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on the first two picks. These were locks. Trevor Lawrence to the Jaguars and Zach Wilson to the Jets. We knew that was happening for a while. The one thing I'll say is Trevor Lawrence was in a dark green suit. So I thought maybe that's a harbinger of something, but my mom said, Jacob, that's the color of money. That's all that means. So look, the Jaguars are set for the next 10 to 15 years. They got a franchise quarterback. They've got a really good head coach in Urban Meyer. I think he's going to do great things in Jacksonville. Obviously, that was a no-brainer. In the lead-up to the NFL draft, Zach Wilson became the clear-cut favorite to be the second overall pick. You love his arm strength. You love his improvisational ability. He's very athletic. Seems like he has a great head on his shoulders. Just like Trevor Lawrence is going to save the Jaguars, Zach Wilson is going to save the Jets. The fun really started at 3. You knew the Niners were going to go quarterback, you just didn't know which one. Justin Fields, Trey Lance, or Mac Jones. The Niners did a good job of keeping everyone guessing. You knew that they knew what they wanted to do. Kyle Shanahan said that they had multiple quarterbacks that they were comfortable with at 3. That's fine, but you had to know that Lawrence was going to go 1. You had to know that Wilson was going to go 2. You better have a high grade on the third guy. If you're going to give up 3 first-round picks to move up 9 spots, you better have a big grade on a quarterback not named Lawrence or Wilson. Evidently, the Niners had that grade on Trey Lance. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I spoke on Monday about the possibility of the Niners not using the third overall pick on Fields, using it on either Lance or Jones. I was dead set against Mac Jones. Trey Lance, I warmed up to. Basically, it came down to this. We all thought that the Niners were going to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. When they traded up to 3, we thought eventually the other shoe was going to drop. Jimmy Garoppolo would be traded. But all the reports coming out from San Francisco said that the Niners were comfortable with keeping Garoppolo for this coming season. Did you hear that the Patriots were interested in him? Yes, you did, but needless to say, that didn't happen. When you look at those 3 quarterbacks, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, and Trey Lance, you can make a very strong argument that Trey Lance has the highest ceiling out of any of them. In fact, I would tend to agree with that. I do think that Fields has a lower ceiling. Not drastically lower, but lower. What's the thing that would keep Lance from reaching that ceiling? If he was thrust into a situation where he couldn't succeed. More specifically, that means starting week 1. You cannot put Trey Lance under center in week 1. He will fold like a cheap suit. You want to tell me that the Eagles started Carson Wentz week 1? Same school, and Wentz worked out his rookie season? Carson Wentz was a lot more polished coming out of North Dakota State than Trey Lance was. Unless it's late in the season, you don't start Trey Lance. If Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt week 1, which, given Garoppolo's injury history, is very possible, I don't like Garoppolo, you've got to start Nick Mullins over Lance. Yeah, that means that Lance could be inactive on game day. I get that. That may be a tough pill for some Niners fans to swallow. The Trey Lance pick is not a pick for now. It's a pick for the future. Even in the mock draft that I did with Nick, we had Lance going 15 to the Patriots. Do you really think that Trey Lance would have started week 1 for the Patriots? No, it would have been Cam Newton. Unless it's the last month of the season, Trey Lance should not see the football field. There is another element to this. Before Zach Wilson cemented himself as the second overall pick with his excellent pro day, probably the best pro day out of anyone, there was still some debate about what the Jets would do at 2. Would they take Fields or would they take Wilson? What a lot of people said, and I agree with this, was that Zach Wilson is a much better fit for the Shanahan offense than Justin Fields is. Obviously, the 49ers have Kyle Shanahan as their head coach, and the Jets have Mike LaFleur as their offensive coordinator, who came from the 49ers. He's gonna run the Shanahan offense. Do I think the Shanahan offense is overrated? I think the Shanahans are overrated, and I said that when the Jets hired Robert Saleh. Nothing against Saleh, nothing against LaFleur, but everyone was hyping up the Shanahan offense and how Sam Darnold could succeed in it. No, I never believed that. And I do think that Mike Shanahan is overrated. I do think that Kyle Shanahan is overrated. Do I think that Mike LaFleur is overrated? No, he's a first-time offensive coordinator. Let's see what he does. But when people were having that debate, Wilson versus Fields, who are the Jets going to take? One of the reasons that people said Wilson was that Justin Fields didn't fit the Shanahan offense. They're right. Trey Lance does. He is athletic enough for it. He can throw from the pocket. He does have great arm strength. Look, he's not the most accurate quarterback in the world. And the fact that he's so insanely raw does scare you a little bit. But in terms of ceiling, in terms of fit, you can't do much better than Trey Lance. I didn't mind that pick at all. Kyle Pitts was next off the board. That, to me, was an easy pick. I did nail it in the mock draft. This guy is a wide receiver in a tight end's body. Arthur Smith is going to have a lot of fun with him. You think about that offense now. Matt Ryan, Mike Davis, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage, and Kyle Pitts. That's scary. I mean, Pitts is a unicorn. There's a reason that he's now the highest drafted tight end in NFL history. It's because he can do things that we've never seen other tight ends do. When you're being immediately compared to Travis Kelce and Darren Waller, two of the three best tight ends in the NFL, you know you're a special player. This was always the right pick. Pitts is going to come in week 1 and dominate. The people saying that the Falcons were going to take a quarterback, no. No way. The idea that Matt Ryan is responsible for the Falcons' failures recently is ridiculous. They had a terrible coach in Dan Quinn. Now they've gotten a really smart coach in Arthur Smith, someone who I've raved about for a long time. It seems like Terry Fontenot has a good head on his shoulders. The Falcons are set up incredibly well for the near future. Jamar Chase went to the Bengals to be reunited with Joe Burrow. You had a lot of people upset that the Bengals took a wide receiver over Penei Sewell, the franchise left tackle. Especially considering that Burrow had his rookie season ended because of a devastating sack. He was hit a lot last year. But this is what everyone missed about taking Penei Sewell. The Bengals already have a franchise left tackle in Jonah Williams. He was by far and away the best offensive lineman that the Bengals had. He had a 70.1 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. They signed Riley Reiff in free agency to be their right tackle. Also, go back and watch the hit that ended Burrow's season. That wasn't pressure given up by the left tackle. That was pressure given up by the left guard and the right tackle. It resulted in Burrow's body going one way and the knee going another way. Very, very tough injury. There's no question about that. Yes, you need to keep Burrow healthy if you're the Bengals. But you're on your way to doing that. You did the right thing by signing Riley Reef. Trey Hopkins is a solid center. Did the Bengals need O-line help? No question. But it's guards that they need, not tackles. Let me tell you, if the Bengals can trade down and get a guy like Quinn Miners, I'm not sure how he pronounces it, the guard out of Wisconsin Whitewater, and then take a guy like Wyatt Davis with their first pick in the 3rd round, that's how you prop up Burrow. You got a guy in Chase who Burrow loves. The two of them get along. Jamar Chase has not caught a pass in college from anyone other than Joe Burrow. Realize he opted out last year. A lot of people said that he was the best wide receiver in this draft. I disagreed with that. I had Devontae Smith over Chase, but the LSU connection was too much to ignore. This was the right pick. Chase is a jack of all trades, master of some. You think about the Bengals wide receivers now, Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. It doesn't get much better than that. The Dolphins continued the new trend of reuniting their young quarterback with players that they played with in college, but they did it the wrong way. How on God's green earth do you take Jalen Waddle over Devontae Smith? How do you look at Jalen Waddle and say, yeah, he's better than Smith? Can you tell me one thing that Jalen Waddle does better than Devontae Smith? What's the knock on Smith? His size. Jalen Waddle is shorter. He's 5'9". Oh my God, he's 10 pounds heavier. Waddle's 180 pounds. Smith is 170. Show me an Alabama game where Jalen Waddle was the better wide receiver. You can't do it. You know why? Because it doesn't exist. That's a terrible pick for the Dolphins. I'm happy. As a Jets fan, I'm thrilled. And it's nothing against Waddle. I think Waddle is going to have a really good career. But you cannot take him over Devontae Smith. The gap between Smith and Chase was small. The gap between Smith and Waddle was big. Now look, I'm pretty sure I said this last year. There's a fallacy that some fans fall into called right position, wrong player. Basically what that is everyone agreed that the Dolphins needed a wide receiver. They took the guy who they had rated higher. Just because you didn't doesn't mean that's a bad pick. If the gap is small, if it's reasonable to say that player B is better than player A, don't get upset at it. I know some Jets fans that didn't like the Mekhi Becton pick at the time because they wanted Tristan Wirfs. They fell into the right position, wrong player fallacy. This isn't an example of that. The gap between Smith and Waddle is huge. I don't know anyone who had Waddle above Smith. All you have to do is watch Alabama games. I mean, my God. I don't get it. That was a bad pick by the Dolphins. As a Jets fan, I'm happy. With the 7th pick, the Lions took Penei Sewell. That set the record for most consecutive offensive players taken to start an NFL draft. I thought Devontae Smith would have been the move. The Lions lost Kenny Golladay. They lost Marvin Jones. I didn't think they had a big need at offensive tackle. But you can make the argument that Sewell was the best player available. I'm not going to get too upset at it. Jared Goff has to be very happy. And this is a wide receiver draft where you can get good value later. It's similar to last year's draft. It's not as good as last year's draft at wide receiver, but it's in the ballpark. So the Sewell pick was a good pick. I had no problems with it. I did have problems with the J.C. Horn pick. I know that a lot of people had Horn and Surtain as the two best corners in this draft. I didn't. My order was Surtain, Farley, Horn. I understand the injury concerns with Farley, but I don't foresee it being a major issue long term. I think that Surtain and Farley have higher ceilings than Horn. It's the curse of Sam Darnold. Any team that has Sam Darnold on their roster is doomed to make bad decisions. J.C. Horn is a jack of all trades, master of none. He has a low ceiling, but a high floor. He's a safe pick. The Panthers did need a corner, there's no question. But I think Surtain would have been the much better pick. I like his size more. Obviously, I like the bloodlines. I understand that J.C. Horn has good bloodlines too. J.C. Horn is Joe Horn's son, but with all due respect to Joe Horn, and he was a good wide receiver, Patrick Surtain the first was better. And again, his son was the better prospect. Kind of funny how things like that work out. And it's also funny that with the next pick, the Broncos took Surtain. So I texted Nick, big Chiefs fan, how does it feel to now have to root against Surtain? He's not happy about it. Let me tell you. Hey, I feel your pain. In the Boston Red Sox's minor league system, they have a shortstop by the name of Jeter Downs. So, as a Yankees fan, I'm going to have to root against a shortstop named Jeter, assuming we ever see him in the majors. And that's a fair assumption. I feel your pain. Really good pick for the Broncos. I would have taken Micah Parsons. I think he filled a bigger need. I know that Parsons' stock had fallen as we got closer to the draft. I don't understand it. But Surtain did fill a need. That Broncos defense got a lot scarier. I don't mind it, and it's nice to rub some salt into the wounds of Chiefs fans, if you're the Broncos. The first trade-up of this NFL draft happened with the 10th overall pick. The Eagles leapfrogged the Giants to move from 12 to 10. The Dallas Cowboys traded back 2 spots. They got the 84th overall pick. And the Eagles hit a home run. For years, they've needed a wide receiver. They failed tremendously. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, major bust. Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. That's not going to work. The Eagles were able to get the best wide receiver in this draft. And all they had to do was give up a mid-third round pick. Yes, you do that. That's the correct decision by Howie Roseman. Jalen Hurts had to be doing backflips. Out of every player in this draft, Devontae Smith may have the best tape. And that includes Trevor Lawrence. That includes Kyle Pitts. That includes Zach Wilson. Do you have any idea how hard it is for a wide receiver to take over games? He's at the mercy of his quarterback. I can't tell you how many Alabama games I watched where Devontae Smith was the best player on the field. And bear in mind, this is Alabama we're talking about. Not Grambling State. Look, is he going to have a tough time with the stronger corners in the NFL? There's no question. He needs to put on weight, but he has stuff that you can't teach. Elite ball skills, elite separation skills. When it's all said and done, Devontae Smith could be the best wide receiver that the Eagles have ever had. That honor right now probably belongs to Harold Carmichael. Smith could leapfrog Carmichael. There's no question about that. Speaking of great trades, the Bears and Giants made a great trade. There were rumors going into this draft that the Giants were going to take Smith. With Smith off the board, what do you do? Quiddy Pay would probably be a little bit of a reach at 11. You get the sense that Dave Gettleman doesn't care about that, but it's still noteworthy. Micah Parsons would have made sense. Rashawn Slater would have made sense. Hell, they could have taken Justin Fields and I wouldn't have minded that. But the Giants did something better. They traded down 9 spots with the Chicago Bears. In exchange, the Giants got the Bears' 4th rounder next year, their 5th rounder this year, and their 1st rounder next year. The Giants picked up an extra 1st to move down 9 spots. They entered this draft with no clear-cut answer to what they were going to do. I wasn't in love with the Smith pick for them. They just signed Kenny Golladay. They have Darius Slayton. They have Sterling Shepard. I know some Giants fans aren't crazy about Shepard. I like Shepard. To move down 9 spots and to pick up an extra 1st, fantastic. Who knew that Dave Gettleman knew how to trade down? He said he never traded down because he didn't want to get fleeced. He didn't get fleeced here, let me tell you. But neither did the Bears. We all know that the Bears took Justin Fields. That was the correct decision. You've got to realize something. Ryan Pace is on the hot seat. And I like Matt Nagy, but he's on the hot seat too. The Mitchell Trubisky pick is still hanging over the Bears' head, even though he's now a Bill. You traded up for a guy who some people had as the second best quarterback in this draft. You had a glaring need at quarterback. No one wants Andy Dalton as their quarterback one. Are you kidding me? I feel sorry for the social media person who had to send that. Entering this draft, the Bears were in a bad spot. They had 5 quarterback-needy teams ahead of them. The Jaguars, the Jets, the Niners, the Patriots, and Washington. To most people, not me, but to most people, this was a 5-quarterback draft. You don't want to be that 6th team. I had the Bears taking Kyle Trask in the mock draft that I did with Nick. I think I may be the only person on earth who had a first-round grade on Kyle Trask. It was a late first-round grade. Yeah, it would have been a reach at 20, but as Nick said, the need is the need. So what did the Bears do? They waited. They let the Jaguars, Jets, and Niners take the first 3 quarterbacks. There was no way that they were going to move up from 20 to 3. So you wait. You let the draft come to you. The Giants come on the clock. There were rumors entering the draft that they could trade down. You've got Justin Fields there. Match made in heaven. Justin Fields is going to be a great quarterback for the Bears. Is he going to start right away? I don't know. I don't hate the idea of starting Andy Dalton for the first few games. Let Fields marinate and then put him in. You've got an excellent quarterback prospect on your hands. Jack of all trades, master of some, very quick release, very athletic. He doesn't get enough credit for that. He can run with the ball when he needs to. And we all know the knocks on Fields. Doesn't win big games. He can get locked on to his primary target a little too much, but for a Bears team that entered this draft in the worst possible position they could be in, to land my 3rd best quarterback, the 2nd best quarterback to some people, is a home run. Great job by the Bears, and a great job by the Giants. The Cowboys got the guy at 12, who they were probably going to take at 10 if the Eagles didn't come calling in Micah Parsons. The Cowboys love taking talent above all else. That is Parsons. Incredibly talented, follows in the great tradition of Penn State linebackers, prototypical frame, 6'3", shade under 250 pounds, can play all 3 downs, excellent run stuffer. The fact that ESPN had Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah over Micah Parsons is ridiculous to me. With the 13th pick, the Chargers made the absolutely perfect pick. It's a dream scenario for them. They needed an offensive tackle. The second best offensive tackle in this draft was Rashawn Slater. Were they gonna get Rashawn Slater? Would they need to trade up for him? You could see it coming that the Chargers were gonna get Slater one way or another. Match made in heaven. The fact that they didn't need to trade up for him is the cherry on top. This is a guy who I had a top 10 grade on. He didn't slip a lot, but he did slip out of the top 10. Jack of all trades, master of some. Maybe you'd like him to add a little bit of weight. And he doesn't have the longest arms in the world, only 33 inches. But he's incredibly smart, excellent pass protector, excellent run blocker. In any other draft, Rashawn Slater would be the best offensive tackle in the draft. Unfortunately for him, Penei Sewell exists. But again, great pick for the Chargers. Justin Herbert had to be doing backflips. This was the correct pick. There were no other options. If someone tried to trade up, I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Telesco just said, "No way," and hung up the phone. You know who didn't hang up the phone? Rick Spielman. He was willing to trade down. And he did trade down. He traded down 9 spots with my beloved Jets. And I knew what they were going to do. The second I saw that the Vikings had traded the pick to the Jets, I knew they were going to take Elijah Vera Tucker. You had heard that rumor for a while that the Jets liked him. I know that Joe Caporoso coveted him. By far and away the best guard in this draft. Doesn't have a lot of experience at guard, but he's a really good pass protector, really good run blocker, very smart, mauler. I like Elijah Vera Tucker. I don't want this to come off as I'm knocking the player. I think Elijah Vera Tucker is going to have a very long career in the NFL. The people throwing out the DeBrickashaw Ferguson and Nick Mangold 2.0 tweets with Becton and Vera Tucker, I get where you're coming from. It does have that potential. There's no question about that. Here's the thing, though. You cannot tell me that this was the best use of assets for the Jets. Did they need offensive linemen? No question. They needed a center. They needed a right tackle. They could have stood to add a guard. My whole thing with the Jets needing a center is that Connor McGovern would be better as a right guard. So that opens up the hole at center. Do I know for sure that McGovern's going to be better at right guard? No. So let's take a right guard later in the draft and let's see if we can develop him. That's insurance. See, here's the thing. The Jets' offensive line entering the draft was Mekhi Becton, Alex Lewis, Connor McGovern, Greg Van Roten, and George Fant. That's not great. I'm not saying that it's Ferguson, Faneca, Mangold, Moore, and Woody. But of those 5 guys, Alex Lewis was the second to last guy you needed to replace. Mekhi Becton is a franchise left tackle. We all know this great player. Alex Lewis is not a franchise left guard, but he's good. He's a good player. According to Pro Football Focus, Alex Lewis was the second best offensive lineman that the Jets had. He had a 66.6 overall grade. The Jets ran a lot of plays to the left, so Lewis was getting a lot of run. Now, granted, that was primarily because of Becton, but Lewis is still there. He's still doing his thing. Becton can't do it all by himself. You cannot tell me that left guard was the second biggest need that the Jets had. I wasn't opposed to the Jets trading up. They certainly had the assets for it. But I wanted Kwity Paye. If you're gonna trade up, get the best edge rusher in this draft. A guy who, when I watch him play, reminds me a lot of Ezekiel Ansah. Think about this front seven. John Franklin Myers, Quinnen Williams, Sheldon Rankins, Carl Lawson, Kwity Paye, C.J. Mosley, and Jabari Zuniga. That sounds really, really good to me. Again, the Vera Tucker pick isn't a bad pick. The Jets just had bigger fish to fry. I will say this, though. There is a way that the Jets can still upgrade their defense. Somehow, some way, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is still available. Take him at 34. Then, trade back into the late second, early third round to take Ifeatu Melifonwu, the cornerback out of Syracuse, who I know the Jets like. Prototypical frame, really good ball skills, very smart corner. He used to play receiver, so he knows what they're thinking. The Jets have a lot of picks in the next NFL draft. Use one of them to trade back into this draft. And then in day 3, you can round out the edges on your roster. You can draft a running back, you can draft a safety, you can draft a kicker. I looked this up. At this very moment, the Jets have $24,065,351 in cap room, according to OverTheCap.com. Now, this does get a little complicated, but run with me. If the Jets make George Fant their June 1st cut, they cut Alex Lewis, who was one of the first guys that Joe Douglas brought in. This guy came in with the reputation of being an offensive line genius. That was one of the first things he did, was trade for Alex Lewis, gave him a big extension. The fact that he's moving on from him a year after giving him that extension, I don't like that. But, c'est la vie. You cut Lewis, you cut Van Roten, you factor in the projected contracts that Wilson, Vera Tucker, and Owusu-Koramoah are going to get, according to Spotrac.com. Again, assuming that Owusu-Koramoah is taken with the 34th overall pick. That leaves the Jets with $23,550,796 in cap room. That's more than enough to sign Richard Sherman, Brian Poole, Austin Ritter, and Mitchell Schwartz. Yes, you can trade up for Melifonwu also. Yes, you can take a running back in day 3. Yes, you can take a safety in day 3. Yes, you can take a kicker in day 3, and you're fine. If the Jets really had a top 10 grade on Elijah Vera Tucker, then yes, trade up for him. That's fine. But you can't neglect the defense. If you replace Pay with Owusu Koromoa, that front 7 still sounds really, really good. The cornerback core needs some work, but it has the potential to be really good. The offensive line can be fleshed out with 2 Super Bowl winning veterans. I don't mind what Joe Douglas did. It's not what I would have done. And this can still go sideways, but I'm not mad at it yet. Don't worry, I can still get there. Speaking of me getting mad, some people said that I'd be mad at the NFL for allowing Mac Jones to slip to the 15th overall pick. The Patriots don't need to trade up for a quarterback. They get a guy who perfectly fits what they want to do. Yeah, Mac Jones is a perfect fit for that Patriots offense. There's no question. And there were rumors that he'd go 3rd overall, so the Patriots get him at 15. How does that make you feel, Jacob? I'll tell you how it makes me feel. It makes me feel very happy, because I think the Patriots just sunk their future. I don't like Mac Jones. And this isn't a Jets fan playing reverse historian because he hates the Patriots. No! Go back! Listen to the mock draft I did with Nick. We killed Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones is going to bust. He is not athletic at all. He's not even that great of a pocket passer. He looked it because he was playing with guys like Najee Harris, Alex Leatherwood, Landon Dickerson, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, John Mechie, guys like that. You put him on this Patriots team that I don't want to say doesn't have talent on offense, because it does. Obviously, they signed Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. They traded for Trent Brown. They signed Nelson Aguilar. I get all that. But I can make a strong argument that the supporting cast that Mac Jones had at Alabama is better than this supporting cast that he has now. And that's important because Mac Jones is a guy who really needs a good supporting cast. Again, watch Alabama games. His supporting cast was elevating him, not the other way around. Tua elevated his supporting cast. Mac Jones is not going to be a good NFL quarterback. He'll be made better because he's with the Patriots, he's with Belichick, he's with McDaniels. It's the perfect fit for him. And I think that Belichick thinks that he's given the Patriots a way to be successful going forward. I do think that's important to Belichick. If and when he decides to take a step back. And far be it from me to disagree with Belichick, but I think he's wrong. I think it's going to be very apparent very quickly that Mac Jones is not a franchise quarterback. Maybe he'll be a game manager with the Patriots. He won't be awful. He won't embarrass himself. But he won't be great. I'll tell you that right now. I like Kyle Trask a lot more. With the 16th pick, the Arizona Cardinals took Zaven Collins. That was the first really bad reach of this draft. I thought Jones was a really bad reach, but I knew he was going to go high. Collins, I didn't know was going to go high. I thought Collins would be picked in like the 25-ish range. To take him at 16, that's way too rich for my blood. The Cardinals didn't even have a need at edge rusher. I like Collins. I like him a lot. I'm not going to say a bad word about him because I wanted him on the Jets. In the mock draft I did with Nick, we had him going 34 to the Jets. 16 is way too big a reach. He doesn't really fit the roster that well. I don't get it. That's a bad move for the Cardinals. Like a really bad move. And the Raiders made a bad move too by taking Alex Leatherwood. Now, let me just dispel one thing. Someone said this on the ESPN broadcast. I don't remember who. But he said if you're going to blow up your offensive line, which I disagree with, and by I mean the ESPN analyst, although I, Jacob, disagree with it also, why would you then draft an offensive lineman? Well, wait a minute. What's the alternative? You're starting 5 offensive linemen or 5 guys that you found from the closest bus stop? I didn't get that at all. If you're going to blow up the offensive line, you need to rebuild it through the draft. The Jets tried rebuilding it in free agency. I think it's in their best interest to move on from 3 of their offensive linemen. It makes sense for the Raiders to go heavy on offensive linemen in the draft. It just doesn't make sense for them to take Alex Leatherwood. Alex Leatherwood will be a good player. I had an early to mid second round grade on him. But there were so many better offensive linemen available. Christian Darrisaw, Tevin Jenkins, Liam Eichenberg. Hell, you could make the argument that Dylan Radins was better. The Raiders always do this with Gruden and Mayock. They reach for these prospects that are good players. Don't get me wrong. Alex Leatherwood is going to pan out. But he's not worth the 17th overall pick. You get the sense that John Gruden is making these picks just to confuse Mel Kiper. Again, this isn't right position, wrong player. I don't know anyone who had Alex Leatherwood ranked ahead of Christian Darrisaw or Tevin Jenkins. This was an egregious reach. Leatherwood will be a solid pro, but not as good as some of those other guys. Bad pick for the Raiders. Jalen Phillips was picked next with the 18th pick. This is just a risky pick. You know, it's just too risky for my blood in the first round. Here's a guy with a major concussion history, actually retired from football. Then he came back, dominated at the U. The talent is there. Excluding the injuries, Jalen Phillips is maybe a top 15 talent in this draft. That's how good his tape is. But you can't ignore the injuries. There's a real chance that this guy is going to go the way of Chris Borland. Retires very early into his NFL career. I can't support taking a guy like that in the first round. Second round, yes. First round, no. I would have preferred Najee Harris here. Get another one of Tua's old teammates. Jamin Davis was picked next with the 19th pick. And this wasn't an egregious reach or anything. I didn't have a top 20 grade on Davis, but he was taken with the 19th overall pick. I can't bang tables over that. Did I have Owusu Koramoah over Davis? Absolutely. But I did like Davis. I was high on him coming out of Kentucky. Who am I to disagree with Ron Rivera when it comes to defensive players? Davis is an excellent tackler. Can play all three downs. Very smart. Looked like a man among boys at Kentucky. Held his own against SEC competition. And Washington did need a linebacker. Owusu Koramoah would have been better, but now I feel like you're in right position, wrong player territory. So I'm not going to go nuts. I like this pick. I like Davis a lot. I think he's going to have a very long career. With the 20th pick, the Giants threw a little bit of a curveball. I saw my buddy Jim yesterday, and as he was leaving my house, I said to him, I could see the Giants trading down for Kwity Paye. So it's lining up perfectly for that. The Giants have a glaring need at edge rusher. You can take a guy who I have a top 15 grade on with the 20th overall pick? Yes. Fantastic. Do that. Dave Gettleman went a different direction and took Kadarius Toney, a wide receiver out of Florida. Now, I like Toney. Very exciting player. Had a really good year last year at Florida. But I'm not sure how smart this pick was. I know a lot of people said that the Giants needed a wide receiver. I disagreed with that. At best, I feel like Toney is their fourth receiver. Now, the Giants will be able to do some fun things with Toney. He has really good separation skills. He's a home run threat. Daniel Jones has a cannon for an arm. He doesn't get credit for that. So, if you want to give him a true home run threat, and a guy who Joe Judge will be able to use on special teams, fine. I don't mind that. I mean, let me tell you, if it's second and forever or third and forever, I don't hate the idea of putting Kadarius Toney on one side, John Ross on the other side, having them run go routes, and letting Jones just put it up for one of them. It's not the pick I would have made if I was Gettleman, but I don't mind it. I thought the Giants had a really smart draft. With the 21st pick, the Colts stopped the slide of Kwity Paye, the best edge rusher in this draft. And look, the Colts needed an edge rusher. This is a home run pick. I understand that Paye is raw. He needs to be coached up. But just like I think Robert Saleh would have been able to coach Paye up, Matt Eberflus can coach Paye up. Eberflus is one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. Sometimes Paye just tries to bull rush offensive linemen He's not going to be able to do that in the NFL. Booger McFarland was 100% right about that. But Eberflus can teach him some pass rushing moves. So can DeForest Buckner. So can Darius Leonard. In fact, I remember a clip from a few years ago when Tamba Hali taught Joey Bosa some pass rushing moves after a Chiefs-Chargers game. Pay's going to be able to learn. He'll be fine. He's going to work out. The Colts got a steal at 21. Home run pick. With their second rounder, they can take an offensive tackle. Maybe a guy like Walker Little or Samuel Cosme, and they'll be set. With the 22nd pick, the Titans stopped another slide. That was the slide of Caleb Farley. The Titans needed a corner, and they got the second best one in the draft. Look, the back surgery is a real concern. He is terrible in run support. But I've said this 1,000 times. I don't want my corners to be good tacklers. Darrelle Revis. Farley's incredibly smart. Has a prototypical frame 6'2", 200 pounds. Great cover skills, great ball skills. I like the idea of Farley and Janoris Jenkins playing together. Those are two really good outside corners. With the 23rd pick, the Vikings took Christian Darrisaw, stopping another slide. I did have a top 20 grade on Darrisaw, so to see him slide out of the top 20 was a little surprising. Not an egregious slide, but still, it's there. The knock on Darrisaw is he's not the smartest offensive lineman in the world. He does have moments that make you think, what on earth are you doing? But he's a bull. Shade under 6'5", over 320 pounds, very athletic. The fact that the Vikings were able to trade down and still get a guy like Darrisaw, that makes a ton of sense. Great job by Rick Spielman. With Najee Harris still on the board, you had to know that the Steelers were going to take him. Obviously, they lost James Conner in free agency. He's now a Cardinal. The Steelers had a glaring hole at running back, and they took the best running back in the draft. Is Harris the fastest guy in the world? The answer is no. But he's an excellent pass catcher, very patient, prototypical size, 6'1.5", shade over 230 pounds. Very strong guy, doesn't lose his balance very easily. The Steelers got the best running back in this draft. What was their biggest need? A running back. It was the correct pick. Everyone could see it coming. The only way that it wasn't going to happen was if the Dolphins had taken Harris at 18. But once they took Jalen Phillips, you knew that he was going to go to the Steelers. With the 25th pick, the Jaguars took Travis Etienne. A huge curveball. There was a rumor that said that any team that took Lawrence was going to take Etienne. Then when the Jaguars got the first overall pick, that rumor kind of died down because they have James Robinson. Robinson ran for over 1,000 yards last year. But I know that Lawrence and Etienne are good friends. Etienne is a jack of all trades, master of some. He's very fast. Get him an open field and watch him go. They certainly had bigger needs. There's no question Tevin Jenkins or Trayvon Moehrig or Christian Barmore would have made perfect sense. Elijah Moore too, Rashad Bateman as well. They all would have made more sense than Etienne, but I understand wanting to keep the band together. It's not a bad pick, but it's not a great pick. With the 26th pick, the Browns made their hometown fans very happy by taking Greg Newsome. That was the correct pick. I love Newsome. Had him going to the Jets at 23. I think he's going to have a very long career in this league. I understand that he didn't have the greatest tape in the world. And yeah, his durability is a concern. But he has a perfect frame. 6 feet tall, 190 pounds. Incredibly smart. Really good in coverage. Plays the ball well. Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, and Greedy Williams on the same team. That may be the best young cornerback core in the NFL. Outstanding pick by the Browns. It was the perfect pick. With the 27th overall pick, the Ravens took Rashad Bateman. Mel Kiper absolutely nailed that pick. I like Kiper a lot, have a lot of respect for him. Bateman is a jack of all trades, master of some. Had a really good career at Minnesota. Very exciting player. He may have the best hands in this draft for a wide receiver. Really good frame, shade over 6 foot, shade under 200 pounds. He has good speed, he can separate from his defender, he's a home run threat. Pairing Lamar Jackson with Rashad Bateman is unfair. But you know what else is unfair? The Saints taking Peyton Turner with the 28th overall pick after their fans have already suffered by seeing Drew Brees retire. It was the right decision by Brees to retire, but it's still a tough pill to swallow if you're a Saints fan. Brees is a first ballot Hall of Famer. We all know this. The first pick you make in the post-Brees era is Peyton Turner? A guy who I think everyone outside of New Orleans had a third-round grade on? I know Adam Schefter said that Turner could sneak into the first round. But why? Why did the Saints feel the need to take him here? Look, Turner's a fun player to watch. Dominated at Houston. Looked like a man among boys. But when you project him to the NFL, it's not good. He's under 270 pounds. He's not very strong. He's not very fast. He's versatile. Dennis Allen is going to have a lot of fun with him. And I understand that you got some insurance for Marcus Davenport, who hasn't set the world on fire since coming into the NFL, but you did just pick up Davenport's 5th-year option. So what's the point in taking Turner? It makes no sense. This was a dreadful pick. This was without question the worst pick of the first round. An absolutely egregious reach. Now, the Packers made another egregious reach, but at least it filled their second biggest hole. I thought the Jets could get Eric Stokes with their first third rounder. For the Packers to take him at the end of the first round, I don't get it. Stokes will be fine. He'll be solid. Will never be great. When you take someone in the first round, you want them to be great. Is Eric Stokes going to get torched like Kevin King? The answer is no. But there were so many better corners available. Asante Samuel Jr., Tyson Campbell, who outplayed Stokes at Georgia, Elijah Molden, Melifonwu, Kelvin Joseph, Aaron Robinson, Benjamin St. Juste. I don't get it. Bad pick by the Packers. You wonder why Aaron Rodgers supposedly wants out. That was the big bombshell that dropped before the NFL draft. And immediately every fan base starts salivating. Oh my God, there's a chance that my team can trade for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the reports came fast and furious. Rodgers wants out because of the Jordan Love pick. He doesn't like Matt LaFleur, partially because of what happened in the NFC title game, who wanted to kick that field goal. Talks about an extension haven't gone well. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk even gave 3 teams on Rodgers' wish list. The 49ers, who are probably off the table now because they took Trey Lance. The Denver Broncos, which could still happen. And the Las Vegas Raiders, which could still happen. This is just me talking, but the Giants would make a ton of sense. If Aaron Rodgers goes to the New York Giants, they become Super Bowl contenders. The biggest thing holding that team back is Daniel Jones. You replace him with Aaron Rodgers. Oh God, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. Now, Brian Gutekunst, the Packers GM, is saying the right things publicly. He's not going to trade Rodgers. He's committed to building around him. You brought this on yourself with the Jordan Love pick. If you're so committed to Rodgers, why'd you take Jordan Love? It makes no sense. Get him a freaking wide receiver. The Packers have drafted one offensive player in the first round since 2012. You know who that is? Jordan Love. You wonder why Rodgers wants out. You've done nothing to support him. This guy's only going to win 1 Super Bowl. It's the biggest injustice in NFL history. Worse than Marino not winning any. Aaron Rodgers is so upset that there was a report that came out that's actually believable that said that he may retire to go take over for Alex Trebek permanently as the host of Jeopardy. Think about that. There is a real possibility, you cannot deny that this could happen, that Aaron Rodgers could walk away from the NFL to host Jeopardy. Now, as someone who watched all of his Jeopardy shows, let me just say that I think Rodgers really liked it. I know he's a big Jeopardy fan. He won Celebrity Jeopardy a while back. He had a really good time with it. I thought that he was a little too monotone. It did get better as the days elapsed, but I think Ken Jennings is the right choice, not Aaron Rodgers. How about a super trade? Let me ask you this. Who says no to an Aaron Rodgers for Russell Wilson trade? If Russell Wilson is truly still unhappy, the only way that you can make that work if you're John Schneider is to trade for Aaron Rodgers. The only way to make that work if you're Brian Gutekunst, if Rodgers is really unhappy and it's unsalvageable, is to trade for Russell Wilson. Getting a guy like Derek Carr isn't enough. It's got to be a superstar. If you're trading a superstar, unless you want the fan base to riot, you've got to get a superstar back. Do I see Aaron Rodgers being traded anytime soon? I don't know. This isn't something that can be easily fixed, like Russell Wilson's desire for a better offensive line. This is years and years of sabotage by the Packers. Not giving him any weapons. Drafting his replacement. Matt LaFleur not trusting him. I can't slam my fist on the table and say there's no way that the Packers are going to trade Aaron Rodgers. For Gutekunst's sake, if he does it, and he doesn't get Russell Wilson back, he just gets picks back. He doesn't even get Derek Carr back. Jordan Love better be the second coming of Aaron Rodgers, or else he's gone. And Love has to show it immediately. Back to the draft, the Buffalo Bills took Gregory Rousseau with the 30th overall pick. That was the correct pick. As we got closer to the draft, I did more work on Rousseau. And the more work I did on him, the more I liked him. I did have an early second round grade on him. To take him at 30 is perfectly fine. The Bills needed an edge rusher. They got the best edge rusher available. Rousseau dominated at the U. In 2019, he had 15 and a half sacks and 19 and a half TFLs. To say that he dominated would be an understatement. He'll be excellent against the run. Very smart guy, very fast. Some people are concerned about his durability because he opted out, but I'm not. I like Rousseau a lot. Zach Wilson's going to have his work cut out for him dealing with Rousseau for the next 10 to 15 years. With the penultimate pick in the first round, the Baltimore Ravens took Jason Oweh. A lot of people really liked Oweh. He was another guy who skyrocketed up boards late. And I get it, prototypical frame, 6'5", shade under 260 pounds, incredibly fast. I'm not crazy about him because I didn't like the tape that he put out last year. The guy didn't record a sack. I mean, come on. You've got to get at least one if you're going to be a first-round pick. I understand that quarterback hurries can sometimes be just as good as a sack, but the way the NFL is going with these quarterbacks that can create on the run, you've got to be able to bring them down. I don't see him being able to play on third downs. He's very smart, and he's very versatile. I like Oweh, but I'm not crazy about him. I think Landon Dickerson would have made more sense here. This pick does make sense, though, because the Ravens lost Matt Judon. I don't hate the pick. I really don't. I like it. I don't love it, though. With the last pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took Joe Tryon. They really had no holes. Just take the best player available. If that's Tryon to them, fine. Go for it. You can make the argument that they could have taken Kyle Trask. Get the long-term quarterback for Brady. You can make the argument that they should have taken Tevin Jenkins. But I like Tryon a lot. He's another guy who's very versatile. Jack of all trades, master of none. Maybe you wanted him to jump off the tape a little bit more at Washington, but when you key in on him, you see all the talent that's there. Todd Bowles had to really like the Tryon pick. Monday's going to be a big day. In the morning, you're going to get my New York Jets draft recap. In the afternoon, regular episode of the Jacob Valk Show, where I'm going to tell you everything that caught my eye in days 2 and 3 of the NFL draft. There may be some other stuff there also. New York Islanders show comes your way on Monday night. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying that the true harbinger of spring is the sound of a bat on a ball.